What's going on, everyone? We are here at the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel with breaking news. Deshaun Watson's suspension is out. 6 games is what the NFL independent investigator has decided for Deshaun Watson. The NFL Players Association has already said they're going to stand by this decision. So, from a fantasy football perspective, it's time to break things down. We'll take the politics or whatever you want to call it out of it right now. We need to be fantasy evaluators and figure out what's going on. And here to break it down with me is Nick Lepre. Follow him at Notorious FNTSY. I'm Matt Savoca, by the way, at Draftaholic. All right, Deshaun Watson out 6 games for the Cleveland Browns. That means this team still has very high expectations with a pretty easy strength of schedule. How are you feeling about Deshaun Watson in fantasy now for 2022, Nick?
Yeah, now my confidence in Deshaun Watson is significantly higher. A couple of months ago, you asked me, and I think that he's probably missing the whole season, and I think that you're a bit of a silly goose if you draft him in your fantasy football league. But now it appears that you might be a genius if you have already drafted him, and that you are in a very good position to draft him late as your number 2 quarterback. Now, I understand, obviously, he might come back and not be very good for the first couple of games. But at the end of the day, when you have a quarterback with the skill level of Deshaun Watson, a guy that is arguably a top 5 quarterback in the NFL in terms of skill set, maybe even top 3. To me, it is a no-brainer to take him late in your drafts and then just store him on your bench for the first 6 games. You can roll him out there in game number 7. Now, that might be a little bit risky, but I definitely do believe that Deshaun Watson is in a very good situation in Cleveland to succeed. I understand the wide receiver core there isn't amazing, but you look back in Houston, was his wide receiver core ever good there? The answer is really no, besides DeAndre Hopkins. And obviously, they have Amari Cooper there in Cleveland, who is a pretty solid receiver, even though people kind of like to make fun of Amari Cooper a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think that the wide receiver core there is pretty good. This is an offense that's set up really good, and I think Deshaun Watson is going to succeed immensely when he plays football.
Okay, so where are you taking him? Kyler Murray is at QB5 right now. Jalen Hurts QB6. Joe Burrow QB7. Russell Wilson QB8. This is underdog ADP right now. Where does he fit in there? Is it lower? Is it higher? Is it in the middle there?
I'm not taking him as a top 12 quarterback because he's not playing the first 6 games, and to me, that just makes perfect sense to not draft him up there. Now, could he finish as a top 12 quarterback? No, because he's going to be missing so many games, but could he be a top 5 quarterback in points per game? Yes. So I'm willing to take him probably after you see guys like Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins come off the board, that kind of range of quarterback, and then take him there kind of close to Justin Fields. Now, again, if you don't draft a quarterback early, I'm not too sure Deshaun Watson is the answer to the equation here. But if you do take, say, Lamar Jackson in the 5th round, then I'm fine in the 10th round, quote unquote, or 9th round, reaching up and taking Watson because of the immense amount of upside he has when he's on the field and the amount of trade value you will get from him in a fantasy football league the second he steps on the field and performs.
That makes sense to me. I just think you're not going to get him in most fantasy leagues if that's the way you're evaluating this. I think you're going to find people who are going to play it the opposite way strategically, where they're going to draft Deshaun Watson a little bit earlier than their teammates and try to slog through the first 6 weeks of the season with a QB 15 to 20 type of player, a Matt Ryan, a Carson Wentz, a Daniel Jones, and then have the upside of Deshaun Watson coming in. I think he is going to be drafted in the top 12. I think you're going to need to be aggressive in some fantasy football leagues if you want to draft him. In terms of positional ADP expectations, the quarterback 7 and 8 has, over the last 20 years of positional ADP, produced around 16.5 to 17.5 fantasy points per game in half PPR traditional QB scoring. That's 4 points per passing touchdown. Deshaun Watson's at 23.5 points per game the last time we saw him on the field. So in terms of points per game, I think it's hard to say that he's outside the top 7. That means I'm probably going to take him in the top 10 of quarterbacks in most drafts and then try to get through with some of my favorite late round options. I think that's the way you're going to have to play it if you want to get access to Deshaun Watson in fantasy in 2022. I would like to do it the way you're talking about with the less risk involved, but I just think that people want QB1 overall upside, and it might be the last opportunity to get that type of upside. It's just bottom line there.
Yeah, I mean, you could be right. It really just has to do with how your league mates view this situation, right? Are they going to view it like DeAndre Hopkins, where we know he's missing this many games, but we're not drafting him as a top 15 receiver? But I guess it's different because it is the onesie position at the quarterback position. So I agree with what you're saying. I think it really just depends on how your league mates view this, because I think there's going to be leagues where Watson's like a 6th round pick, and there's also going to be leagues where you see Watson go in like the 12th round.
Absolutely. There's going to be huge variance. And two final caveats here. At this point, the NFL could still appeal this suspension. So we're not completely locked into 6 games, but the expectation right now amongst NFL media is that the NFL is not going to appeal this number. And the second part is you still have to read the room. Obviously, leagues that suspended players can be in the IR slot, you got to take Deshaun Watson really high up there. That's the main caveat we need to add as well. Suspended players in the IR slot, giving you an extra roster spot, that makes him all the more valuable. Again, we've said it many times on the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel. We are going to have different drafts, different draft rooms, so definitely read it. But if there's a chance to stash him like that, then you got to take him even higher, go even more aggressive if you want him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We've talked about this with DeAndre Hopkins as well. So, yeah.
There you go. So that is our breakdown of the Deshaun Watson news here. Yeah, the Cleveland Browns outlook has changed. Expect their win totals to change now that that information is out there. For Nick, follow him at NotoriousFNTSY. I'm Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. We'll see you guys soon.